Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Maddie here. Maddie, you're a VC at Ryze Labs, which has been really a big backer of lots of different interesting blockchain projects, including Polygon, which has had an incredible amount of success. And now you guys are building a privacy-first, fully local AI platform. And you're building something that's kind of different in this space where you've got this kind of voice first approach with it overall. It's something that could be assisting you in lots of different areas. And it kind of takes this idea of what AI can do to automate your life to a different level. So I'm excited to have you here and to just get into your story and what you're building.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here today.
Awesome. So Maddie, how did your interest in the world of VC, and kind of backing companies begin? Were you ever interested in more of the entrepreneurial side and like building up some of these companies? Like, how did you kind of gravitate towards, I want to, back them and be partners in them?
Sure. I think that ultimately it's an expression of my extreme intellectual curiosity and the fact that I've always, since I was a kid, wanted to be playing with the latest technology and learning everything that I possibly could. And it's kind of a combination of that plus my constant desire to be where the engine of dynamic change is. Those two attributes that I've had basically my whole life really led me down a couple paths. First and foremost, being interested in tech investing, but they also led me to my interest in emerging markets and uh, my interest in crypto. The extreme level of intellectual curiosity combined with wanting to be near the engines of change. Um,
Mhm.
that's
Well,
that's
how did
that's
you
really
discover
the
crypto?
my primary impetus.
How did you find out
Pardon
about
me?
crypto? How did you find out about crypto? Like what kind of got you
Yeah.
interested in backing companies
Yeah.
there?
I first found out about crypto because I have my weird Reddit habit, which is part of my information addiction that goes along with intellectual curiosity. So I remember I first discovered crypto. Unfortunately, I didn't get involved in it at that time, but I discovered it in 2010 because it was trending on Reddit about the dude that bought a pizza from across the world. And I remember being like, "What the heck is this? This looks kind of interesting," and reading all about it. And I kind of like mentally was like, "Oh, this seems pretty important. I'm gonna file this away." And obviously, the correct action would have been to drop everything and get super involved immediately. But I thought it was really provocative. Actually, is the word that comes to mind. It was a provocative idea, even a dangerous idea, frankly. And I mean that in I mean that not in a negative way, but it was an idea, obviously, that was and continues to be very threatening to the entrenched powers and the status quo and things like that. So I thought it was super interesting, but I didn't get very involved in it at that time, sadly. The first time I tried to um, the first time I tried to get involved in crypto in my professional life was 2013 when I included it as part of a pitch to one of our telecom banking clients. I basically pitched a version of the Solana phone only for Bitcoin, and they almost laughed me out of the room. They really did not like the idea at all. But then for me, I know for a lot of people, Bitcoin was the mic drop for them when they read the Bitcoin white paper and things like that. For me, the real moment when I felt compelled to drop everything um, was Ethereum, when all of a sudden you could have intelligent programmable money, smart contracts, and things like that. And I thought that idea was so uh, astonishing and just an enormous idea. Beautiful, frankly, is a word that comes to mind. I was really, you can tell by the words I'm using that I was really compelled. And it was actually a drop everything moment for me. That's when I really absolutely needed to get involved. So that's a little bit of the journey. Yeah.
So what did you see in Ethereum that made you like, fully jump in? Was it just the way that it was designed for apps to be built on top of it?
Sure. So somewhere in between, 2010 and 2015, I had started to get involved kind of like as a hobbyist.
Hmm.
But to me, this probably has not aged super well, but to me, there were some maybe limiting factors for Bitcoin. Well, I mean, basically, I, I was having a hard time understanding how it could be used, for transactions and things like that. That part has aged okay, but I guess the point is, to me, there were some kind of limiting factors for the idea itself, and I wasn't super intellectually engaged with the hard money digital gold type concepts.
Hmm.
Wasn't that I didn't think they were important, but they didn't necessarily really resonate with me. I'm not a big Austrian economics guy. It's just not really. It didn't resonate with me in a lot of ways, I guess. But then when the idea of being able to add those extra aspects of intelligence and programmability to me, we were now talking about an idea that was like 10,000 times more important. It hasn't quite worked out that way in terms of market cap and things like that. Maybe in some other metrics it kind of has, but to me that was really the mic drop moment, and I was just absolutely fascinated by the opportunities that might come from that.
Hmm. And when did you kind of go from I'm interested in this personally, I need to buy some Ethereum to I should start a fund and start backing some of these companies
Sure.
or
So
be a part of a fund?
I guess it was a little bit of a step-by-step journey where I'm a big believer in um, developing different kind of like levels of expertise and how that should match the ways that you get involved. And so it was a little bit of a journey of first being in being investing in the secondary market, and getting to really know the landscape, and then slowly getting more aggressively involved as I felt more comfortable with the lay of the land and who the players were and what motivates them and things like that.
Mhm. So, what was like the initial thinking behind Rise? Like, was it what did it start out? It started out specifically like we need to back kind of blockchain apps or stuff just built that is designed to build blockchain ecosystems. Because you guys backed Polygon, but you've also backed other platforms that have very different approaches to Polygon.
Zero, Solana. We were an early investor in Wintermute. We've done some pretty good ones. So I think it's simple. My background is emerging markets, tech banking, specifically specializing in Greater China. And it was my observation that to have emerging market specialists all under one roof is something that's rare, even in trad tech, even in traditional technology. So to have that for crypto could be, and it's proved to be true in my view, something that's pretty compelling, because it turns out that, I mean, kind of as you'd expect, if you're building your business in Berlin or Bangkok or San Francisco, you're building your crypto company, you don't really have time to simultaneously become an expert on the Vietnamese market or the Philippines market or China or any of these other emerging markets. That's just not how anything works. And so the value prop that we have is that if we're on your cap table, we can bring those emerging markets expertise. Uh, we can leverage them on your behalf or in conjunction with you. So it turns out that's a pretty compelling value prop. Obviously, I myself am absolutely not an expert in all these different emerging markets, but we have a team of people that represent these different geographies. Everyone on the team, I suppose, has four competencies: the fact that they are well versed in finance and technology, and also they're global and local, meaning that they're very international people, but they have a local emerging markets expertise in wherever it might be, India, Vietnam, et cetera, et cetera. So having that all under one roof is pretty compelling, even in traditional technology. But in Web3, it's basically unique, and it's something that we're very proud of.
Mhm. Can you talk a bit about like the Solana deal and like how that kind of came about and what made you want to get involved there?
Sure. So Solana, to me, the way I thought about it at the time, in kind of a layman's analogy, I'm a big student of tech history, and there was a way of thinking about it, which I here's how I presented it internally. I used the analogy of uh, in computing, in I guess like the late 90s or early noughts, there was a transition period. It went from everyone was trying to have faster and faster CPUs. It was how many megahertz, gigahertz you had, and it was all about faster and faster. But then there was a transition period to where we now had multiple cores. We now were going 2 CPUs, 4 CPUs, things like that, rather than faster and faster with one CPU. And the analogy I used at the time was that Solana's fundamentally different architecture, multi-threaded and things like that, was kind of analogous to that paradigm shift for computing. Basically, the bottom line is that they were taking a fundamentally different approach, and and to me, it was almost the definition of an asynchronous bet with a lot of high upside potential. It was just an absolute no brainer. You don't get many of those, and so I think um, uh, obviously, it's now one of the foundations of our industry. But then so is layer zero in some ways, not to the same extent, of course, but certainly Wintermute is now a pillar of our industry. So we're very proud of all of our portfolio companies.
Hmm. So you're now also starting an AI platform. Can you talk about that, like how you're shifting to that approach of building, launching your own company out of what you're doing?
Sure. So we think it's pretty interesting and fun and compelling to be able to incubate companies as well. And Uh, we are tremendously bullish on the intersection of AI and crypto. I am a big believer in the thesis that all of these different AIs, which are fundamentally, obviously, digital in nature, that they are going to have to not just communicate, but also transact. It seems pretty unlikely that they're going to be doing that using, fiat, using bank accounts or a Stripe or whatever. It just doesn't really ring true to me. So I think that you're going to have economic value that's exchanged between all these AI agents and economic actors, and I think that that's going to be in crypto. And there's huge opportunities at the intersection of AI and crypto as a result. And we think it's pretty fun to get involved on the building side as well. That's kind of the bottom line.
Mhm. So what is Amiko basically?
Sure. So Amiko is first and foremost, it's an orchestration layer. So you can think of right now we already have hundreds, if not thousands, of AI agents, even in Web3. And so it's going to get pretty complicated, even for highly technical people to be using complicated, but also cumbersome for even highly technical people to be using all these different AI agents. So first and foremost, Amiko is an orchestration layer, by which I mean that it kind of can assemble all these AI agents into an orchestra, and it can be the conductor. So what that means is that you can have some abstraction. You can abstract away all the complexities or even the need to know that you're using hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of AI agents. You can abstract, so all that is happening behind the scenes. You can interact with just from the user perspective. You can be interacting just with one AI agent, kind of like character or tour guide. And then when you make a request or an interaction, or you order some action, then your Amiko conductor, without you needing to get involved, and obviously in real time, it sends your um, your query or request or command to the relevant member of the orchestra, sends that information, has that AI agent take action, and then sends it back, routes it back through this common look and feel AI agent character, so that it feels like basically you're always interacting with the same in the same way with the same. It uses like a character. Feels like you're talking to a digital person, and you don't have to know that you just use 32 different AI agents. It never feels that way. It feels like you're always talking to AI Ben, or I don't know. So you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
feels like these AI agents are actually quite powerful in terms of their ability to simulate human conversation, obviously, as we know, and make it feel like you've got your AI buddy and it's getting things done on your behalf. And again, most importantly, it can abstract all those things away. And then additionally, it's in partnership with some of our top Asian hardware friends that have pedigrees from some of the top companies on this side of the world, such that we can have we can put devices in people's hands that they portable devices, and also there's going to be an AI brain type concept, which is a higher powered device you can keep on your desktop or in your home. There's a couple interesting concepts that are coming out of this project that I believe will be quite useful to people and also fun as well.
Hmm. So why build on Eliza OS specifically? Like and how does it actually adapt to the user? Because that's a fascinating thing that can understand you and keep changing to you.
Sure. So Amiko can use Eliza OS, but it can use it basically it can be configured and it can work with any open source AI agent, Eliza OS or otherwise, for anyone else who wants to become part of this orchestra. So, including but not limited to Eliza OS. We can play with virtuals agents as well, for example, and it doesn't even need to be Web3. It can be any open source or anyone that opts into the system. And then in terms of customization, I think that is probably a fundamental property of LLMs in general, but then you can kind of lean into that. You can fine tune that. There's actually some pretty fun experiments. It can be a little creepy too, to be honest, but there are some fun experiments that you can play with. Even ChatGPT, which is um, which is not necessarily really fine tuned for this purpose, but you can even play with ChatGPT. And if you take different power users of ChatGPT and you give them similar questions to ask ChatGPT after they've been using it for months and months as a power user, it will actually respond in different ways depending kind of on the usage patterns and personality characteristics, even of the even of these the power users in question. It can be a pretty fun little experiment, a little bit creepy too, but like mine, for example, when I ran this experiment myself, it um, ChatGPT ChatGPT claims that it's I forget what it was exactly, but it was claiming that it's always a little on guard, like I might hammer it at any time. I guess I'm always a little bit dissatisfied with the responses and want more details and things like that. Whereas another person, it might view you more as it might respond saying it views you more as a friend, things like that. The point is that even ChatGPT, which is not really customized for this purpose, does tune itself to you over time, especially if you're interacting with it in all different ways as a power user. So it's a fundamental property of LLMs, but then you can lean into it as well.
Mhm. So, what is your kind of vision now for Ryze Labs? Because you're building stuff, you've got this incubator portion, then you also are backing companies. Do you see yourself shifting more towards the incubator model? Like, what does the future hold here?
I think we'll continue to do both. I think it's fun to invest in a wide variety of companies, and then if there are specific situations where it makes sense to incubate as well. And so we're going to really be doubling down on both. It's an expansion rather than a pivot.
And just the last question I have, like, what are some of the biggest trends you're most excited about now within the world of blockchain AI that you're looking to back, and the ones you think that will be the biggest over the next 5 to 10 years, let's say?
I think 5 to 10 years is pretty tough for our industry. We're one of the most dynamic industries in the history of modern business. So I think that that's actually a mistake that a lot of people make. That it's easy to be overconfident about your ability to predict things a year out, 2 years out, 5 years out. To me, it's like trying to predict what's going to happen in the Middle East. The only way to win is not to play. Like, stick to trying to predict what'll happen next week. Even then, it'll be pretty hard. So I try to avoid. I think it's a mental trap. So I actively try to avoid trying to predict too far out. But we obviously continue to be pretty excited about the intersection of AI and crypto, as we've been talking about. I mean, look, we all know that one of the biggest PMFs for crypto is a lot of like thinly disguised examples of gambling, pump.fun, etc. My hope is that we'll have more useful non-gambling consumer oriented apps and things like that, because we've had stable coins and the enormously powerful PMF, but then we've also had gambling, which is, it's I also think meme coins are fun, right? But we're a little bit overweight meme coins, for the last year or so. So I'm hoping we'll maybe have a healthier balance, and we'll have some consumer oriented apps and things like that that'll take off. And obviously we're leaning into the intersection of AI and crypto as discussed.
Mhm. Well, Maddie, I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. That was all the questions that I had. I
Yeah.
think you've been able to back some incredible companies so far, and I'm not sure how far some of these companies would have went without the backing you've given them. I mean, especially Solana, you look at how much has been achieved there. That's one of the most forward-facing consumer blockchains. You've had a pretty significant role in that. So I'm just excited to see where you'll go with this AI project you're working on now, Amiko, and how it will benefit people and what the future holds. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much. Great to be here, Ben.